When Karen from the HOA slapped a $3,000 fine on my door for my solar panels, I laughed. Then I got mad. She thought she could bully me into tearing down the panels I'd spent months installing. But what she didn't know was that her little power trip was about to spark a wildfire. See, I'm not just some guy with a few solar panels. I'm sitting on a secret that could flip the entire Pineview Meadows HOA upside down, and it's got everything to do with the county's power grid. If you've ever dreamed of putting an HOA in its place, this story's for you. Where are you watching from? Hit the comments. I want to know how strong our anti-HOA squad is. My name's Caleb Mercer, 37, a renewable energy consultant who traded Denver's urban grind for a quieter life in Pineview Meadows, a suburban enclave in northern Colorado. After years designing solar farms and wind turbines for big clients, I want a place to call my own, a modern two-story with a big lot for my experiments in off-grid living. Pineview seemed perfect. Rolling hills, starry skies, and homes spaced far enough apart to breathe. The HOA fees were a hefty $350 a quarter, but the realtor swore it was for top-tier amenities like a community pool and manicure medians. What she conveniently forgot to mention was Karen Whitaker, the 41-year-old HOA president who ran this place like she was auditioning for dictator. I met Karen 3 days after moving in. She rolled up in a polished black SUV, her blonde bob so perfect it looked like it was glued on. "Welcome to Pineview Meadows, Caleb," she said, handing me a binder stuffed with more rules than a prison handbook. "We pride ourselves on elegance and unity. I'm sure you'll love it once you understand our standards." Her smile was all teeth, and her eyes flicked to my cargo shorts like they were a personal insult. That was my first clue I'd landed in Control Freak Central. For 6 months, I played nice. I paid my dues on time, kept my lawn trimmed to the HOA's exact 2-inch spec, and avoided the monthly meetings which my neighbor Mia Torres, a 34-year-old nurse with a knack for gossip, called Karen's core complaints. Mia was a gem, always waving from her porch, sometimes dropping off homemade tamales. "Steer clear of Karen," she advised over a beer one evening. "She's got a sixth sense for anything that doesn't fit her vision of perfect." Trouble hit on a crisp October morning. I'd spent the summer installing a sleek array of solar panels on my roof, 12 high-efficiency units, enough to power my house and charge my electric truck. It was my pride and joy, a step toward living off-grid in a neighborhood obsessed with gas-guzzling SUVs. I was tinkering with the inverter in my garage when Karen's SUV screeched to a stop. She stormed across my lawn, heels sinking into the grass, waving a piece of paper like it was a royal decree. "Caleb Mercer, what are these?" she barked, pointing at my panels. "You can't just slap eyesores on your roof without HOA approval." I wiped my hands on a rag, confused. "Eyesores? Karen, they're solar panels. They're saving me money and cutting emissions." Her face twisted like I'd insulted her personally. "They're unapproved modifications, and they clash with Pineview's aesthetic. You're in violation of Article 7, Section 3 of the bylaws." She thrust the paper at me, a violation notice demanding I remove the panels and pay a $3,000 fine within 30 days or face a lien on my property. I stared at the notice, my blood pressure spiking. "Karen, I checked the bylaws before installing. There's no rule against solar panels." She crossed her arms, smirking. "The board interprets aesthetic standards, and I say they're a problem. Pay the fine, remove the panels, or we'll escalate." She spun on her heel and marched back to her SUV, leaving me standing in my driveway, fuming. That night, I pulled out the HOA bylaws, 200 pages of soul-crushing legalese, and scoured every line. Mia was right. Article 7, Section 3 vaguely mentioned exterior modifications requiring approval, but solar panels weren't listed, and Colorado law protects homeowners' rights to install them under the Solar Rights Act. The fine was a bluff, a power play to make me bend the knee. But Karen had picked the wrong guy to mess with. I wasn't just a homeowner. I was a guy who'd spent years navigating utility contracts and land leases. If she wanted a fight, I'd bring one. I called Mia the next morning, still steaming. "Can you believe this? A $3,000 fine for panels that aren't even against the rules." She sighed, stirring her coffee. "That's Karen. She's been telling the neighborhood, watch, you're ruining the vibe. Says your panels make Pineview look like a science experiment. Science experiment? I scoffed. She drives a gas-hogging SUV and lectures me about the environment? Mia leaned in, lowering her voice. Look, Karen's got the board wrapped around her finger, especially Greg Larson, the VP. He's her yes man, a 45-year-old realtor who'd sell his soul for her approval. She's used to getting her way, but I heard she's got bigger plans. Something about a green initiative to boost property values. That got my attention. A green initiative? Sounded like a PR stunt, especially from someone who thought solar panels were eyesores. I started digging, pulling up Pineview's HOA website and public county records. Most of it was standard. Meeting minutes, budgets, complaints about untrimmed hedges. But buried in a 2018 budget report, I found a line item. Utility infrastructure contribution, $15,000, paid to Whitaker Energy Solutions. Whitaker? As in Karen Whitaker? My gut told me something was off. Then I remembered something my dad mentioned before he passed 2 years ago. Our family had a land trust set up by my great-grandfather in the 1940s, tied to utility easements across northern Colorado. Dad called it our little secret, a forgotten relic that still paid a few $100 a year in lease fees. I never paid much attention, but the trust's name, Mercer Land Holdings, stuck in my head. On a hunch, I dug through a box of old documents in my attic and found a yellowed file labeled Mercer Trust Assets. Inside was a map of Pineview County with a handwritten note. Primary substation easement, 12 acres, leased to County Power Authority, 1948. My heart skipped. The county's main power substation, the one feeding Pineview Meadows and half the region, was on land my family trust controlled. If that was true, I didn't just own my house. I held the keys to the HOA's electricity. But I needed proof, and fast, because Karen wasn't done with me yet. The next HOA meeting was a week later, and I decided to crash it. The community center was packed, 40 residents crammed into folding chairs, Karen presiding like a queen. She wore a tailored blazer, her voice dripping with fake warmth. We're here to discuss community standards, she began, and address violations that threaten our harmony. Her eyes locked on me, and the room turned. Mr. Mercer, she said, care to explain why you've ignored our violation notice and continued to deface your property with those panels? I stood, holding a copy of the bylaws. Happy to, Karen. Your fine has no basis. The bylaws don't ban solar panels, and Colorado law protects my right to install them. I'm not paying a dime. The crowd murmured. Greg Larson jumped in, all nervous energy. The board has authority to enforce aesthetics, and your panels are a clear violation. Show me the rule. I shot back. Or better yet, explain why the HOA is charging us for a common area utility fee when half the budget goes to Whitaker Energy Solutions, a company tied to you, Karen. The room went dead silent. Karen's smile froze, and Greg looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. I'd struck a nerve, but I didn't have the full picture yet. As the meeting dissolved into chaos, Karen fixed me with a glare. You have 15 days to pay, Caleb, or we'll lien your house and sue. Don't test me. I walked out, adrenaline pumping, knowing I'd just declared war. That night, I called my dad's old lawyer, Susan Chun, a 50-year-old property law shark, and sent her the trust documents. Her reply came at midnight. Caleb, you're sitting on a gold mine. Your trust owns the substation land, leased to the county for pennies since '48. You could renegotiate or terminate the lease. The HOA's power runs through you. As I stared at the map, my phone buzzed with a new HOA notice. Another $1,500 fine for public defamation at the meeting. Karen was coming for me, but what she didn't know was that I'd just found the switch to her entire operation. Tomorrow, I'd start pulling the plug, literally. What's Karen's next move? Guess in the comments, and tell me where you're watching from. Got an HOA horror story? Share it. Let's build this crew. When Karen Whitaker tacked on a $1,500 fine for defaming her precious HOA at the last meeting, she thought she'd cornered me. Her smug little notice, taped to my door like a scarlet letter, demanded I grovel or lose my house. But what she didn't know was that I'd just uncovered a secret bigger than her ego, My family's trust owns the land under the county's power substation, the lifeline for Pineview Meadows electricity. Karen thought she was pulling the plug on me, but I was about to flip the switch on her entire operation. If you're sick of HOA bullies, stick with me. This is where it gets good. Got a story of your own? Hit the comments. I want to hear it. The morning after the HOA meeting, I woke to a trashed mailbox, smashed open, my bills scattered across the lawn. A sticky note clung to the wreckage. Comply or leave, troublemaker. No signature, but Karen's fingerprints were all over it. By noon, my phone buzzed with a new email from the Pineview Meadows HOA, this time from Greg Larson, the spineless VP. Notice of intent to lien. It read, claiming my $4,500 in fines, the original $3,000 plus the new $1,500. Justified seizing my property if unpaid in 10 days. The audacity was almost impressive. Almost. I called Mia Torres, my neighbor and unofficial Pineview gossip hub, to vent. They're threatening a lien now, I said, pacing my kitchen, for solar panels and calling out their BS. Mia groaned over the phone. Karen's on a rampage. She's been telling the neighborhood, watch, you're a radical environmentalist, sabotaging property values. Mrs. Jenkins down the street won't even look at me since I waved at you yesterday. Radical environmentalist? I laugh bitter. She drives a V8 and calls my panels an eyesore. It's worse, Mia said, her voice low. She's holding private meetings with her loyalists, Greg, that nosy realtor Linda Phelps, and a few others. They're planning something big to set an example with you. I heard her mention a green initiative again, like it's her ticket to HOA sainthood. Karen's campaign was in full swing. By evening, my street felt like a ghost town. Neighbors who'd once nodded hello now averted their eyes. Someone egged my truck overnight, and a for sale sign, definitely not mine, appeared in my yard. I yanked it out, fuming, and knew I had to move fast. Karen wasn't just playing dirty. She was building a mob. But I had an ace up my sleeve, and it was time to play it. I drove to Denver the next day to meet Susan Chun, my dad's old property lawyer, at her sleek downtown office. Susan, a 50-year-old with a razor-sharp mind and a penchant for crushing bureaucratic nonsense, greeted me with a grin. Caleb, you've stumbled into a hell of a fight. Let's see the trust file. I handed over the Mercer Land Holdings documents, including the 1948 substation easement map. She skimmed it, her eyes widening. This is legit, she said, tapping the map. Your trust owns a 12-acre parcel under the Pineview County substation, leased to the County Power Authority for $500 a year since '48. That lease is renewable every 50 years, and guess what? It's up for renewal next month. You could renegotiate for millions or terminate it and cut the county's power, including Pineview Meadows. I leaned back, stunned. So I could turn off Karen's lights? Susan chuckled. Legally, yes. Practically, it's a nuclear option. The county would fight tooth and nail, but you've got leverage. Let's start by confirming the trust title and digging into the HOA's utility ties. She pulled up county records on her laptop, cross-referencing the trust's assets. The substation land was ours, no question, and the lease terms gave the trust unilateral control over renewal. Then Susan frowned, clicking on a Pineview HOA budget report. Hang on. Here's that $15,000 payment to Whitaker Energy Solutions from 2018. I ran a check. Companies registered to Karen's brother, Tom Whitaker, with Karen listed as a silent partner. They've been paid $75,000 over 5 years for utility consulting. Smells like a kickback. My jaw dropped. So Karen's finding me for solar panels while funneling HOA money to her family's company. Looks like it, Susan said. We need their contracts and invoices. If they're overcharging or misrepresenting services, it's fraud. I'll file a public records request, but you should talk to your neighbor, Mia, right? She might know more about this green initiative. Back home, I found Mia watering her garden, her face tense. You're the talk of Pineview, she said, glancing around. Karen's telling everyone you're planning to sue the HOA to destroy our community. She's pushing this green initiative hard. Says it's a solar farm deal to modernize Pineview, but only her board buddies are in the loop. A solar farm? I raised an eyebrow. She hates my panels, but wants a solar farm. Mia shrugged. It's fishy. She's been meeting with some utility exec at her house. I saw his car, fancy, with a County Power Authority sticker. That night, I started planning my counterattack. If Karen was cozying up to the county's power folks, she might be banking on her Whitaker Energy Solutions deal to fund her green initiative or line her pockets. But I held the substation land, and that gave me a chokehold on her plans. First, I needed to protect myself. I ordered a set of high-def security cameras, motion-activated, with night vision, and spent the weekend installing them around my property. If Karen or her goons tried anything, I'd have them on tape. Susan called Monday with an update. Titles confirmed. Mercer Land Holdings owns the substation parcel outright. I've drafted a letter to the County Power Authority notifying them of your intent to renegotiate the lease. We're not terminating yet, but this'll get their attention. Also, the HOA's utility contracts are a mess. Whitaker Energy Solutions billed $30,000 last year for grid integration studies that don't exist in county records. We're onto something. I grinned, imagining Karen's face when she realized her scam was unraveling. But she wasn't slowing down. Tuesday morning, I found a flyer taped to every mailbox on my street. Save Pineview's beauty. Protest Caleb Mercer's illegal solar panels. It announced a community demonstration outside my house Saturday, urging residents to stand against rogue homeowners. Karen's signature was scrawled at the bottom, her name in bold like she was signing a royal edict. I was pissed, but not surprised. Karen thrived on public shaming, and this was her big swing. I texted Mia a photo of the flyer. She's lost it, Mia replied. Half the neighborhood's scared to cross her, but some are whispering about those utility fees. Keep pushing, Caleb. Late that night, my security system pinged. I checked the feed and froze. A figure in a hoodie was creeping along my side yard, shining a flashlight on my solar panels. They lingered, snapping photos, then slipped away into the dark. The footage was grainy, but the hoodie had a logo, Whitaker Energy Solutions. Karen wasn't just rallying a mob. She was spying on me, maybe planning sabotage. I forwarded the clip to Susan, who called me at 7 a.m., her voice urgent. Caleb, I got the HOA's latest financials. Whitaker Energy Solutions isn't just overcharging. They're invoicing for a green initiative tied to the county's new solar farm. The kicker? The solar farm's proposed site is adjacent to your substation land, and the HOA's claiming partnership rights to your trust easement. They're trying to steal your leverage. My stomach dropped. Karen wasn't just fighting me over panels. She was gunning for my family's land to bankroll her legacy project, and she thought she could bully me out of the way. But she'd underestimated me. Tomorrow, I'd show up to her protest with more than words. I'd have proof that'd make her green initiative crumble. When I caught a hooded figure in a Whitaker Energy Solutions hoodie snapping photos of my solar panels at midnight, I knew Karen Whitaker was playing dirty. Her community protest flyer, plastered on every mailbox in Pineview Meadows, was her next move, rallying a mob to shame me into ditching my panels. But what she didn't know was that I had her on camera, and Susan, my lawyer, had just uncovered her HOA's plot to steal my family's easement for their shady solar farm deal. Karen thought she was leading a victory march, but she was about to walk into a trap. If you're fed up with HOA power trips, you're gonna love this. Got a story to share? Hit the comments. Let's see how big this crew can get. Saturday morning dawned bright and cold, my street buzzing with tension. By 9 a.m., Karen's protest was in full swing. She stood in my driveway, megaphone in hand, leading a crowd of 25 neighbors, some waving signs reading Save Pineview's Charm and No Rogue Panels. Karen, in a pristine green blazer, looked like she'd stepped out of a campaign ad. Greg Larson, her VP lapdog, trailed behind, clutching a clipboard like a shield. Linda Phelps, the 50-year-old realtor who lived for HOA gossip, was snapping photos for her neighborhood newsletter. Caleb Mercer, Karen's voice blared through the megaphone. Your unauthorized panels are a blight on our community. Remove them now, or face the consequences. The crowd cheered, though a few neighbors, like Mr. Patel, the quiet 60-year-old accountant next door, looked uncomfortable, shuffling their feet. I stepped onto my porch, Susan Shin at my side, her briefcase packed with ammo. "Karen, you're trespassing," I called, loud enough for the crowd to hear. "And I've got footage of your buddy sneaking around my yard last night, wearing a Whitaker Energy Solutions hoodie. Care to explain?" Susan held up her tablet, playing the security clip on loop. The crowd went quiet, craning to see the grainy figure skulking near my panels. Karen's face twitched, but she recovered fast. "That's irrelevant," she snapped. "Your panels violate our bylaws, and this community demands compliance." "Show me the bylaw," I shot back. "Or explain why your family's company, Whitaker Energy Solutions, has been pocketing $75,000 in HOA fees for fake utility work." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Linda's camera froze mid-snap. Greg stammered, "That's, not accurate," but Karen cut him off, her voice icy. "Slander won't save you, Caleb. Pay your fines, or we'll lien your house and sue." She turned to the crowd, rallying them. "Who's with me to protect Pineview's values?" Half the group cheered, but cracks were showing. Mr. Patel stepped forward, hesitant. "Is it true about the fees? I've been paying $50 a year for utility maintenance. Where's that money going?" Others nodded, murmuring. Karen's smile tightened, and I saw my opening. "Funny you mention that," I said, holding up a stack of printouts Susan had prepared. "These are HOA financials, showing $15,000 a year to Whitaker Energy Solutions, owned by Karen's brother and partially by her. No bids, no oversight. Sounds like a scam to me." I tossed the papers into the crowd, letting neighbors grab them. Chaos erupted. Some shouted at Karen, demanding answers. Others defended her, yelling that I was a liar. Mia Torres pushed through, her nurse's scrubs still on from an overnight shift. "Caleb's right," she called. "I've seen Karen's brother at HOA meetings pitching this green initiative that's just a front for their company. We deserve the truth." Karen's megaphone screeched as she tried to regain control. "This is a distraction. Caleb's panels are the real issue." But the crowd was splitting, half loyal to her, half eyeing the financials with suspicion. That's when an older man, maybe 65, with a weathered face and a flannel shirt, approached me. "Name's Tom Reynolds," he said quietly. "Used to work for the County Power Authority. We need to talk private." Susan and I ushered Tom inside as Karen's protest fizzled, her loyalists trailing her back to her SUV. Over coffee in my kitchen, Tom dropped a bombshell. "I retired 5 years ago, but I know the Pineview substation. Your family's trust owns the land it's on. 12 acres, critical to the grid. Karen's been schmoozing with the county exec, Roger Klein, to build a solar farm next to it. They're planning to claim your easement as a public utility to lock you out." My jaw hit the floor. "Claim my easement? Can they do that?" Tom shook his head. "Not legally. Your trust has first dibs on any grid expansion. But Klein's dirty, takes bribes, fudges permits. Karen's banking on him to push it through." Susan, scribbling notes, looked up. "This fits. I got the HOA's latest contracts yesterday. They've signed a partnership agreement with the County Power Authority, claiming joint rights to your easement for the solar farm. It's a blatant overreach. Your trust's lease predates their deal by 70 years. She pulled out a document, highlighting a clause. "Mercer Land Holdings retains exclusive control over substation expansions unless waived in writing." I leaned back, mind racing. Karen wasn't just fining me for panels. She was trying to hijack my family's land for her solar farm, using HOA fees and county connections to pull it off. But I had the upper hand. "Susan, can we block their deal?" "Absolutely," she said, grinning. "We'll notify the county that your trust is renegotiating the lease. If they want that solar farm, they'll deal with you, not Karen. I'm also drafting a fraud complaint against Whitaker Energy Solutions. Those invoices are a goldmine." Tom nodded. "About old county contacts, we'll talk off record. Klein's been dodging audits for years. If you push, he'll crack." I spent the next 2 days prepping with Susan. We sent a formal letter to the County Power Authority, demanding a lease renegotiation and halting any easement deals with the HOA. I also printed 50 copies of the HOA's shady financials, slipping them into neighbors' mailboxes under cover of night. If Karen wanted a public fight, I'd make sure everyone knew her game. But she wasn't backing down. Thursday morning, a process server knocked on my door, handing me a summons. The HOA was suing me for $10,000 in damages for my panels, citing a newly amended bylaw passed in a secret board meeting that banned solar installations. The summons also demanded I cease defamatory attacks on the HOA or face a restraining order. I called Susan, who laughed. A secret bylaw? That's unenforceable. Colorado law requires member votes for amendments, and your Solar Rights Act protection still stands. This is Karen panicking. That evening, Mia swung by, her eyes wide. Caleb, Karen's losing it. She's telling everyone you're a con man trying to bankrupt the HOA. But people are talking. Mr. Patel's organizing a group to demand a financial audit. You're shaking things up. As we spoke, Tom Reynolds texted me a grainy photo. Karen and Roger Klein, the county exec, shaking hands outside her house. His message read, "Found this in old county files. Klein's been taking HOA consulting fees since 2019, $50,000 total. They're in deep." My pulse quickened. Karen wasn't just scamming the HOA. She was bribing a county official to steal my easement. This wasn't a neighborhood spat anymore. It was a conspiracy. Susan was already on the phone with a contact at the state attorney general's office, prepping to escalate. But Karen had one more card to play, and it was coming fast. Tomorrow, she'd hold an emergency HOA meeting to save Pineview from ruin. What she didn't know was that I'd be there, armed with Tom's evidence and a plan to pull the plug on her entire scheme. Karen Whitaker's summons, demanding $10,000 for my illegal solar panels, was her latest swing, but the photo of her shaking hands with crooked county exec Roger Klein was my knockout punch. Her emergency HOA meeting to save Pineview from ruin was set to paint me as the villain, but I was ready to flip the script. Armed with proof of her $50,000 in bribes and $75,000 in shady HOA payments, I was walking into her lion's den with a flamethrower. Karen thought she'd bury me, but she was about to learn that my family's trust holds the county's power grid and her fate. If you're cheering for an HOA takedown, stick around. Got a story to share? Hit the comments. Let's keep this rebellion growing. The evening of the emergency meeting, I met Susan Shun and Tom Reynolds at a diner near Pineview Meadows to finalize our plan. Susan, my property law shark, sipped black coffee, her laptop glowing with HOA financials. Tom, the grizzled ex-utility worker, nursed a soda, his flannel shirt smelling faintly of engine oil. "Karen's desperate," Susan said, sliding me a folder. "This is everything. Whitaker Energy Solutions invoices, Klein's bribe records, and your trust substation lease. We'll hit them hard tonight." Tom tapped the Klein photo I'd sent him. This was taken at a county gala in 19. Klein's been in Karen's pocket ever since, pushing her solar farm deal. "If you show this, the room will explode." I grinned, nerves buzzing. "Good. Let's make her sweat." At 7 p.m., the Pineview Community Center was a pressure cooker, 50 residents packed in, standing room only. Karen stood at a podium, her green blazer pristine, flanked by Greg Larson and Linda Phelps, who clutched a stack of flyers like a holy relic. The room buzzed with tension, neighbors whispering as I slipped in with Susan and Tom. Karen's eyes locked on me, her smile a razor's edge. "Friends," she began, voice smooth as venom, "we're here to address a crisis. Caleb Mercer's reckless actions, illegal panels, slander, and threats jeopardize our community's harmony. Tonight, we'll vote to enforce our bylaws and protect Pineview's future." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others, Mr. Patel included, looking skeptical. Linda passed out flyers accusing me of environmental vandalism and financial sabotage. Susan nudged me. "She's laying it on thick. Your move." I stood, raising a hand. "Before you vote, Karen, mind explaining why Whitaker Energy Solutions, your family's company, got $75,000 in HOA fees for fake utility work?" I held up Susan's folder, letting the crowd see the bolded invoices. "Or why you paid Roger Klein, a county official, $50,000 in consulting fees to push your solar farm on my family's land? The room erupted. Neighbors shouted, grabbing for the copies Susan tossed out. Mr. Patel waved an invoice, furious. Is this true, Karen? My dues paid for this. Mia Torres, near the front, stood. I told you all. Karen's green initiative is a scam. She's been lying about the money. Karen's composure cracked, her megaphone voice faltering. These are baseless lies. Whitaker Energy Solutions provides critical services fully approved by the board. Susan stepped forward, cool as ice. Really? Then why are there no competitive bids, as required by Colorado HOA law? And why do county records show no grid integration studies for your $30,000 invoice last year? She held up the Klein photo, projecting it on the wall. Care to explain your deal with Roger Klein, who's pushing an illegal easement grab on my client's substation land? The crowd roared, half outraged, half defensive. Linda Phelps shrieked, "This is a witch hunt." But Greg Larson just stared at the floor, sweating. Mr. Patel and a dozen others crowded Susan, demanding more files. Karen banged the podium, desperate. Order. This is a distraction from Caleb's violations. Then she played her trump card. Enough, she snapped, pulling out a document. The HOA has a pre-existing easement agreement with the County Power Authority, signed by Roger Klein, granting us rights to the substation land for our solar farm. Caleb's trust has no claim. She waved the paper, triumphant. Furthermore, our board passed a new bylaw last week, banning solar panels retroactively. Caleb's in violation, and we're suing for compliance. The room fell silent, neighbors glancing between us. My stomach twisted. Karen was fighting dirty, and that document looked official. Susan, unfazed, took the paper, skimming it. This is a forgery, she said loudly. The Mercer Trust's 1948 lease predates any county agreement, and easements require the landowner's consent, which Caleb never gave. As for your new bylaw, it's illegal. Colorado's Solar Rights Act protects his panels, and secret amendments violate state law. The crowd erupted again, louder this time. Mr. Patel shouted, "We never voted on a bylaw." Mia rallied a group near the back, chanting, "Audit the books." Karen's loyalists, Linda, Greg, and a few others, tried to shout them down, but the tide was turning. Tom leaned in, whispering, "Klein's signature on that easement is his death knell. He's got no authority over your land." Karen, cornered, switched tactics. "Fine," she hissed. "We'll vote to expel Caleb Mercer from Pineview Meadows for disrupting our community." All in favor. Her hand shot up, followed by Linda's and a dozen others. But Mr. Patel stood, voice booming. "No vote until we audit the finances. A move to suspend the board." Half the room cheered, drowning out Karen's protests. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Neighbors arguing as Karen stormed out, Greg and Linda scrambling after her. Susan pulled me aside, her eyes gleaming. "We've got her on the ropes. That forged easement is a felony if we prove it. I'm calling the Attorney General tomorrow." Outside, Mia caught up, breathless. "Caleb, you've split the HOA in half. Patel's group wants to meet tomorrow to push for new leadership. You're changing things." Tom nodded, lighting a cigarette. "Watch your back, kid. Karen's not done, and Klein's got county pull. They'll hit hard." That night, I checked my security cameras, half expecting another hooded snooper. Instead, I saw something worse. Roger Klein's car parked at Karen's house, the two of them talking on her porch at 1 a.m. I sent the clip to Susan, who called me at dawn, her voice tense. "Caleb." I dug deeper into the HOA's accounts. There's a hidden offshore account tied to Whitaker Energy Solutions, with $200,000 in transfers over 3 years. This isn't just fraud, it's money laundering. My heart pounded. Karen wasn't just bribing Klein or scamming neighbors. She was running a criminal operation, and my substation land was the key to her empire. Susan was already prepping a whistleblower report, but Karen's next move was coming faster than I expected. By morning, a new flyer was taped to my door. Special HOA vote to seize Caleb Mercer's property. It was set for tomorrow, and Karen had one last trick up her sleeve to steal my land before the truth came out. Karen Whitaker's flyer announcing a special HOA vote to seize Caleb Mercer's property was her Hail Mary pass, but the $200,000 hidden in an offshore account tied to her family's company was my checkmate. With proof of her bribes to county exec Roger Klein and a forged easement claim, I was ready to crash her emergency vote and pull the plug, literally, on her Pineview Meadows empire. My family's trust owns the land under the county's power substation, and I was about to remind Karen who really holds the power. If you're rooting for an HOA smackdown, you're in for a treat. Got a story to share? Hit the comments. Let's keep this rebellion electric. The special vote meeting was set for Saturday, 24 hours after Karen's flyer turned my street into a battleground. I met Susan Shun, Tom Reynolds, Mia Torres, and Mr. Patel on my unlikely war council. In my living room Friday night, papers strewn across the table. Susan, my legal ninja, had filed a whistleblower report with the state attorney general, and her phone pinged with updates. Tom, the ex-utility worker with a knack for dirt, had dug up Klein's old emails, hinting at more payoffs. Mia and Mr. Patel, now leading a rebel faction of neighbors, were ready to demand an HOA audit. Karen's cornered, Susan said, highlighting a bank transfer record. This offshore account, $200,000 over 3 years, funneled through Green Ventures LLC, is linked to Whitaker Energy Solutions. It's money laundering, and Klein's cut is $100,000. Mia whistled. She's been fleecing us for years. Mr. Patel, adjusting his glasses, nodded. About 15 neighbors ready to back us. But Karen's out Linda Phelps spreading lies, saying Caleb's extorting us to tank our power. Tom grunted. Klein's are muscle. Expect a stunt, something to scare the crowd. I leaned forward, heart pounding. Then let's scare them back. If the HOA wants my land, I'll threaten to terminate the substation lease. No lease, no power for Pineview. Susan raised an eyebrow, grinning. Bold. I've notified the County Power Authority. They're in default for not disclosing Klein's deal. They're begging for a meeting. Let's use it. Saturday evening, the community center was a powder keg. 80 residents packed in, some waving "Protect Pineview" signs, others clutching my financial printouts from last meeting. Karen stood at the podium, her green blazer swapped for a navy suit, her face a mask of righteous fury. Greg Larson and Linda Phelps flanked her, handing out ballots marked "Expel Caleb Mercer." The air crackled with hostility as I walked in, Susan and Tom at my side, Mia and Mr. Patel trailing. Tonight, Karen declared, voice cutting like a blade, we vote to seize Caleb Mercer's property for violating our bylaws and threatening our community stability. His extortion, demanding control of our utilities, ends now. Her loyalists cheered, Linda's camera flashing like a paparazzo's. I raised a hand, stepping to the mic. Before you vote, Karen, explain this. I held up a bank statement, projected on the wall by Susan's tablet. $200,000 in HOA funds transferred to an offshore account tied to Whitaker Energy Solutions, your family's company, and $100,000 to Roger Klein for consulting on a solar farm that needs my family's land. The room exploded. Neighbors shouted, some grabbing Susan's copies. Mr. Patel stood, voice booming. This is theft. We demand an audit. Mia rallied her group, chanting no more lies. Karen's face paled, but she gripped the podium, defiant. These are fabricated accusations. Caleb's trying to sabotage our green initiative. Susan took the mic, cool as ever. Fabricated? The Attorney General's office disagrees. They're investigating Whitaker Energy Solutions for fraud and money laundering, based on our whistleblower report. She held up a letter from the AG's office, dated yesterday. And your seizure vote is illegal. Colorado law doesn't let HOAs confiscate property. The crowd roared, half cheering, half booing. Linda screamed, he's a liar, but Greg just shrank in his seat, muttering to himself. Then Karen played her next card. Enough, she snapped, pulling out a thick document. The county has issued an injunction, signed by Roger Klein, blocking Caleb's attempt to terminate the substation lease. Our solar farm partnership with the County Power Authority is secure, and his trust has no power. Might get twisted. An injunction? Susan snatched the document, her eyes narrowing. This is another forgery, she said, voice carrying. Klein has no authority to issue injunctions, and the county can't override a private lease from 1948. Your partnership is dead, Karen. The room was a battlefield. Neighbors arguing, ballots forgotten. Mr. Patel's group chanted for Karen's resignation, while Linda's loyalists shouted back. I seized the moment, stepping forward. If the HOA wants a fight, I'm ready. My trust can terminate the substation lease tomorrow, cutting power to Pineview Meadows. No lights, no AC, no green initiative. Want to test me? The crowd went silent, even Karen's allies hesitating. Tom whispered, "You've got him, kid." But Karen wasn't done. "You're bluffing," she hissed. "And if you push us, we'll push back hard." She stormed out, Linda and Greg scrambling after her, leaving the vote in limbo as neighbors dispersed, arguing. Outside, Mia hugged me. "You've got half the neighborhood on your side now. Patel's filing for an emergency audit tomorrow." Susan nodded, checking her phone. The AG's moving fast. They're interviewing Klein next week. Keep your cameras rolling, Caleb. That night, my security system pinged at 2 a.m. I checked the feed and cursed. 3 figures in mass were spray painting my solar panels, red paint spelling comply or else. One tripped, dropping a can with Linda Phelps Realty logo. I sent the clip to Susan, who called at 6 a.m., furious. This is vandalism, and Linda's tied to it. We're pressing charges. Then she dropped a bigger bomb. I traced the offshore accounts transfers. Klein's not just taking bribes. He's linked to a regional corruption ring, funneling utility contracts to cronies. The AG's looping in the FBI. Your substation land is the key to their whole operation. My head spun. Karen wasn't just a greedy HOA tyrant. She was a cog in a criminal machine, and my trust land was their golden goose. Susan was prepping a federal complaint, but Tom texted a warning. Klein spooked. "Heard he's pushing Karen to neutralize you. Watch your panels." By noon, a new notice was nailed to my door. Cease and desist operation of solar panels, citing safety hazards and demanding I shut them down by midnight or face enforcement action. It was signed by Karen, with a county seal that looked suspiciously like Klein's handiwork. She wasn't just coming for my land. She was targeting my panels, and I had a sinking feeling her enforcement meant sabotage. Tomorrow, I'd face her final move, and I needed to be ready to pull the plug first. Karen Whitaker's cease and desist notice, nailed to my door like a wanted poster, was her final shot, demanding I shut down my solar panels or face enforcement. With $200,000 in a hidden offshore account and a county exec in her pocket, she thought she could sabotage my panels and steal my family's substation land for her solar farm scam. But I had the FBI on speed dial, cameras rolling, and a trust that controls Pineview Meadows' power grid. Karen was about to learn that you don't mess with a guy who can flip the switch. If you've been cheering for this HOA takedown, you're in for the grand finale. Got a win to share? Hit the comments. Let's end this saga strong. The morning after the notice, I was a bundle of nerves, expecting Karen's enforcement to hit hard. Susan Chun, my legal bulldog, met me at my house, her laptop open to the FBI's latest email. "They've got wiretaps on Roger Klein," she said, her voice low. "He's been spilling about Karen's bribes, $100,000 to push the easement deal, plus $50,000 for fake permits. They're moving tonight to catch her crew red-handed." Mia Torres and Tom Reynolds joined us, ready to play lookout. Mia, still in scrubs from a hospital shift, checked my camera feeds on her phone. "Linda Phelps was at Karen's last night," she said. "I saw her loading paint cans into a van. Same logo as the vandalism." Tom, puffing a cigarette, nodded. "Klein's got higher muscle, ex-cons he uses for dirty work. They'll target your panels." I called Mr. Patel, who'd rallied 20 neighbors for an emergency audit push. "We're with you, Caleb," he said. "If Karen tries anything, we'll be there." I upgraded my cameras with floodlights and set an alarm to ping the sheriff if anyone crossed my fence. If Karen wanted to fight, I'd light up her downfall like a stadium. By dusk, Pineview Meadows was eerily quiet, my street bathed in the glow of my solar-powered floodlights. Susan and I watched the camera feeds from my living room, coffee in hand. At 10 p.m., Mia texted, "Van parked at Karen's. 3 guys, hoodies, heading your way." My pulse raced as the cameras caught them. 3 figures scaling my fence, carrying crowbars and spray cans. One sprayed, shut it down on my panels, while another pried at the inverter box. I hit the floodlights, blinding them. "Smile for the cameras," I shouted through the intercom. The goons froze, then bolted, straight into a sheriff's cruiser and 2 unmarked FBI vans that screeched up. Agents in tactical gear swarmed, cuffing the trio as Susan grinned. Perfect timing. I tipped the FBI after Klein's wiretap mentioned panel sabotage tonight. Sheriff's Deputy Anna Lopez, a 40-year-old with a no-nonsense glare, approached. "Caleb, we've got them for vandalism and trespassing. FBI's taking lead, says it's tied to a bigger case." An agent, Agent Carter, a 45-year-old with a buzz cut, nodded. Klein's singing. Named Karen Whitaker as his partner in a utility fraud ring. "Your land's the key. They needed your easement to launder solar farm profits." My jaw dropped. Karen wasn't just scamming the HOA. She was a kingpin in a multi-million-dollar racket. Agent Carter showed me a photo. Karen and Klein at a county office, signing the forged easement. "We're raiding her house now," he said. "Stay put." An hour later, Mia called, breathless. "Caleb, they've got Karen in cuffs. Klein's at the station, spilling everything." I flipped on the news. Local Channel 7 showed Karen being led from her mansion, her navy suit rumpled, face twisted in fury. The ticker read, "Pineview HOA president arrested in fraud probe." But the HOA wasn't done yet. The next day, Mr. Patel organized an emergency community meeting to address the chaos. The community center was packed, 100 residents, some shell-shocked, others furious. Greg Larson and Linda Phelps tried to run it, but the crowd booed them off. Mr. Patel took the mic, voice steady. "Karen's board is finished. We're voting for new leadership and a full audit." I stood, holding Susan's final report. Karen's Whitaker Energy Solutions siphoned $200,000 from our dues, laundered through an offshore account. Roger Klein took $100,000 in bribes to steal my family's substation land. The FBI is shutting it down, but we need to rebuild trust. I paused, then dropped my bombshell. My trust renegotiating the substation lease with the County Power Authority. I'm securing $2 million over 20 years, and I want half to fund Pineview's new community solar program, free for every resident. The room erupted in cheers. Mia hugged me, tears in her eyes. "You're giving us power, literally." Mr. Patel shook my hand, grinning. "You've saved Pineview, Caleb." Even some of Karen's former loyalists, like Mrs. Jenkins, nodded reluctantly. The vote was unanimous. New board, full audit, and a partnership with my trust for the solar program. Susan pulled me aside after. "The AG's charging Karen with fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. Klein's facing 20 years. His ring spans 3 counties. Your evidence broke it open." Tom clapped my shoulder. "Knew you had it in you, kid." Klein's cronies are running scared. That week, I met with the County Power Authority, signing a new lease that kept the substation running while funding Pineview Solar Grid. My panel stayed up, now a symbol of victory. Neighbors stopped by, some apologizing, others offering beers. Mia and Mr. Patel led the new HOA board, slashing fees and posting every budget online. Pineview felt like a community again, not Karen's fiefdom. But as I sat on my porch one evening, sipping coffee under the hum of my panels, a letter arrived. No return address, just a typed note. "Klein's gone, but his friends aren't. Watch your grid." My stomach tightened. Susan had warned me the corruption ring had deep roots, and someone was still out there. I texted Agent Carter, who promised to follow up, but I knew this fight might not be over. For now, though, I'd won. My panels powered my house, and soon, Pineview's new solar grid would light up the neighborhood, free from Karen's grip. I looked at the stars, thinking of my dad, who'd called our trust our little secret. He'd be proud. I wasn't just a homeowner. I was the guy who turned the lights back on.